Hello, in this video we'll continue to work on Lab 301 with SSMS software. So let's go to question number 4. What courses are listed in the FAC student grades table? List the course names, not their IDs, only once in your results. So just like question 3 where we worked on the professors table and listed the faculty or professors names, in this we need to modify the above code to make sure we list the course's name instead. In the database diagram, we can see that DIM course section has the course ID or the course as well as the course name, and this is related to the FAC student grades table with section ID. Okay, so let's go ahead and start working on the query now. So we want all the courses listed in FAC student grades table. We want the course names. So for us, the best approach would be, I want to see how many courses are there. So to do that, I need to connect or join FACT student grades table with DIM course section table. And how do we do that? The common field across these two tables is section ID. So I want to have a join condition saying section ID in DIM course section equals section ID in FAC student grades table. Once we do that connection, then we'll list the course name from this table and make sure that we do it distinct. So let's go ahead and build that query now. I'll start with query number 4, and I could easily copy paste from this previous query and modify it. So select, instead of p.professor name, I would say c.course name, and once again the c is an arbitrary name that I have given. So c.course name from, so we still need the FAC student grades table. Let's keep that one. Instead of the professor table, I need the DIM course section table, and I'm going to call this table C. So now I needed c dot course name. If you don't remember what the column name is, you may look it up on the side by going to the course section table and the column, and you will see it's called course name. So you have to make sure you spell it just like that. Okay. And this time G dot, instead of professor ID, the common field is section ID. So G dot section ID equals C for DIM course section dot section ID. So let's build that. And the question said to have all the courses listed only once. So remember to put the word distinct back in. Select distinct c.course name from faculty student grades table as G, join DIM course section C on G.section ID equals C.section ID, and go. Let's hope this query will run. It did. And these are all the courses. And you can see we have 12 courses here. All of them are unique. So I'm going to make sure all the results are visible and then take a snipping tool. Get a little screenshot to put in my file. Okay, so that was query number 4, question number 4. Let's go to the next one. It says, which students have taken most number of classes? So we want to know which students have taken most number of classes. So how do you get that information? First thing, I want to count how many classes has each student taken. So if I go back to my database diagram, let's look at the student table. It has student name, ID, and major. Okay, it does not have anything about the course. Then I have faculty student grades table where I do have the student ID. I also have the course grade for them and the section ID. So I do know that I definitely need these two tables. If I want student's name, then I need these tables. If I just want student ID, then I don't need the student table. Then I want to know how many courses they have taken. One way could be for us to have how many different sections they are in and just count the sections. That should tell us how many different sections they are in. So what we are going to do is we are going to join these two tables. The student name will come from this student table, and then how many courses are going to come from the faculty student grades table by counting how section ID to how many sections they are in. And how do we join both of these tables? With the help of student ID, which is the common field. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. We start our query number 5. So let's go ahead and work on this query. Select. We want to count how many sections they are in, and usually all the keywords should be written in all caps. Count of section ID. And like I said earlier, this is a function that you are using, and it may not give a proper name to the column in your results, so you want to use an alias as and give it a name. You can give any name. I am just saying number of courses. Where do we want it from? We want it from two tables. So the first one, let's call, is the fact student grade. So fact student grades table, and the name appears here that you can use. We have to give it an alias. I'm calling it G. We have to join it with the other table. Join the other table, in this case will be the student table, so it's called dim student. And let's give it an alias as well. I'm just going to call it S. And what's the joining condition? The joining condition is on. We want to say the common field from both of these tables are equal. We just figured out the common field was student ID, so I'm going to say S dot student ID equals G dot student ID, and go. So we have all of these. Let's go ahead and run this. Execute the query. Okay, so right now it just says how many courses there are. So I missed, I want each student and how many courses they have. So for this, I need to have the student's name. So let's see, what is the student name called? The column name is student name, and it is coming from the dim student table. So let's have student name, comma, this. So let's go ahead and run this query. And it looks like I've made a mistake, so let me look at that. So the mistake is that I'm trying to use student name with an averaging function or an aggregate function count. This is not allowed. So that's where group by comes in. So let's go ahead and modify our query. So once we have joined, I want to say that I want this data to be grouped by student name. So for that, we need to have group by, and what do I want my data to be grouped by? S dot student name. Okay. And this will take care of the error we had earlier. So what it is going to do is, it will create groups of your data or subgroups of your data, and for every student name, it is going to create number of courses. So far we are doing well. I will just also add sorting in the data results. So let's say order by, and what do I want to order by? Let's say I want to order by number of classes. So this field, number of courses, I'm going to order by that. And I can specify whether I want ascending or descending. I need to put this number of courses in quotes. And then let's say I want descending. So student with higher number of courses will appear on top. So let's go ahead and run it. So you can see the results now. So we have Chandni Patel, most number of courses in the beginning, and so on and so forth. As you scroll down, you will see the number of courses are decreasing. So that's how you will work with this. And once again, take a snipping tool and take a screenshot. If for this query, since there are so many rows, if you cannot take all of them, I would recommend going all the way down and then take a screenshot so we know how many rows you have. So go ahead, take a screenshot like this. That can go in your Word file. Let's go to question number 6. It says, which professor awards the highest average grade to his/her class? What I want to know is, which professor awards what average grade? So I want to find out the professor's name and what is the average grade that they are offering. And this query is not complete. We need to fill in some things here. For example, from table 1, join table 2. So we need to have a table right after the join. And after on, we need to have the joining condition, which should say G dot whatever the common field is equals another table dot common field. And then we need to have some group by fields and some order by fields. So let's go ahead and do that. So I want to have professor name and I want to have the calculated average grade. So let's see where we can find this. So we have the grade in course faculty student grades table. It is called as numeric grade. I need that field and I need to have the average of it. And I also need professor's name, which is coming from professor table. So let's work on query number 6 now. We'll start with what do we want? We want select professor's name. Let's call it ROF, prof name. And I also want a function which was given to you. The function is cast function. So let's look how. So basically I'm using cast. First of all, I'm calculating average of G dot numeric grade as decimal to 1. So it's going to be 2 digits, 1 digit after the decimal point. And I'm using for this cast function. And again, I am giving it a name as average grade. So that's what I'm using for casting. Where do I want this from? So I want to join two tables. The first one is fac student grades, which we are calling G. Join, the other table is going to be dim professor. And this table we have called as P. On, the join condition is going to be that prof ID is common from these two. So G dot prof ID equals P dot prof ID. So far, we have got everything except the problem is we are using an aggregate function and aggregate function will not allow professor name here. So we want the data grouped by professor name. So use group by prof name. Now the code also tells you to order by something. So we can do order the data by. So in this case, based on the code that's given to you, it looks like we want to use average grade in descending order. So do that and go. Let's run it. We hope no errors. By the way, one thing I wanted to point out is that professor name, I didn't have to add p dot professor name, but if you want, we can add it because it's not a common field. So only the common field, you have to add the qualifier or the table name. Others, if you add it, well and good. If you don't, it should still work. So let's do that and now run the query. So that's what we have. Let's look at the results here. So we have different professors and what grade they are giving. So once again, take a screenshot of it and put it in your Word file. Moving on to question 7. It says, what are the top 10 highest achieving students based on GPA? So we want to find highest achieving students based on GPA. To do this, what you need to do is you need to have every student calculate their GPA, which we can do by averaging their numeric grade, and then we will find the top 10. So there is a function called top, after which you can specify how many top 10, top 20, whatever you want. So I'm going to say select top 10, which will give us top 10 students. Now I want to calculate the GPA using average function on numeric grade, and then to make it look even with one decimal place only, I will use the cast function to have displayed at decimal with total 2 digits and 1 after that decimal. Then how many different tables we need? We need dim student table, from where we'll get the student name and the faculty student grades, which has the student ID and the students grade information. So let's go ahead. Very similar to the previous question, except this time we are also doing top 10. So let's go ahead and do that. I can actually start typing here in the code. Start with query 7 and say select top 10 and get the cast function again. So I would start with select top 10 and I said s dot student name cast average of numeric grade. So let's take average of numeric grade and cast it as decimal with 2 comma 1 means 1 decimal place as GPA. And which table do we want it from? We want it from the student table, which is dim student. So that's the table we are calling as S. Join. So far, I think you are more familiar with which table has most of the details. So fact student grade says G. And what's our joining condition? It's S dot student ID equals G dot student ID. Now, once again, this will create the join. But we have used student name, which cannot be used with an aggregating function. So we need to group by. So let's go ahead and use group by. What should we group by on? We are going to group by on the student's name. So S dot student name. Okay. Now we may want to sort the results by descending order because we want top 10. So let's do order by, and what's the field we are sorting by? GPA. So let's do order by GPA and let's do descending. If you do descending, it will be the most highest one first and then keeps on decreasing. And go. I hope we don't have any mistakes in here. So let's go ahead and execute it. And you can see the result here. You will see, since we have used top 10, it only lists the top 10 students. If you remove the keyword top and the following 10, it will give you all the students and what their GPA is in a decreasing order. So once again, you can take a screenshot of this. Now let's go to our last question, number 8. So number 8 asks, what is the most difficult course with the lowest average GPA? So I need to calculate average GPA, find the lowest one. But how do I do the averaging? This time I'm not going to average by the student. This time I'm going to average by the course. So for every course, I will calculate average GPA and then find top 10. But if we are going to find top 10, then we need to sort the data in ascending order. So here's a typo. It should, instead of DESC, we should have ASC. So very similar question. Let's do it. Instead of the student table, we will have the course table. So let's go ahead and look at it. So let's start. Select. We can still do top 10. This time, what do we want? We want the course information. So let's say, where is it? So we have the course information in the course section. So we have course name here, and we have course grade or numeric grade here. So we need to connect these two tables. The common field is section ID. Section ID here is equal to section ID here. So let's go ahead and do that. We can say C dot course name, comma, and then use the same cast function that we used previously. So I'm going to copy paste, and you can go ahead and type. I'm going to use the cast function. Cast average of G dot numeric grade as decimal, GPA. Now, from which table? We are going to use the fact table. So fact student grades table, we are calling it G like we did before. Join. This time we have to have the course table. So dim course section. I'm calling it C because I already used the course name C above. On. So C dot section ID, which was my common field, equals G dot section ID. Now, what did we want to order by? Once again, we'll have to first group by course name because we want our data for every course. So group by C dot course name. Now, if we are using top, we need to have our data sorted in some order. We can't have data randomly. So if I want most difficult courses and I'm using top, then I want to sort my data in the increasing order of the GPA. So I will use order by GPA. In what order? Instead of DESC for descending, this time I will use ASC for ascending, and then go. Let's go ahead and run this to see if there are any errors. So no errors, and you will see the first course we have has the lowest GPA and goes on increasing. So that's your query number 8. So let's go ahead and again take a screenshot of this result. That completes this lab assignment.